Sveiki, norėjau pasidalinti vaizdo įrašu, kur NBA legendos rinksis savo pradinį penketą, bet yra taisyklės, jie turi rinkti savo pradinį penketą tik nuo 1990 metų iki 1999 metų ir komentaruose parašykite savo sukurtą penketą.
You say about Dream Team?
I was so
It was wrong that Shaq and I wasn't on a dream team. It was just wrong.
And I still
100%
think Dream Team 2 could beat Dream Team 1. And I don't care who like it.
What? Hey, I was on Dream Team 2. I was on that team.
You forgot. So, what did you walk into in 1995 as you came into this league?
Wow. I think the league obviously was post-Jordan. Jordan had sort of retired for the first time. And the legends of the 80s who kind of played a little bit into the 90s were retiring as well. Isaiah had just left in Detroit, Magic a few years earlier, Bird. So the league was sort of maybe in a bit of a transition as Shaquille was emerging, Reggie.
Emerging? I was emerged already.
He was born emerged.
No.
Whatever that is.
Who was the first pick me word this morning? Not Alonzo Morning.
Oh, man. That was my train of thought.
I was with him when he wrote that one, too. Emerged.
But the league was in transition, I think. And younger guys were emerging as the new stars, as the new pillars of the league. Shaq, although he was already emerged.
And the interesting thing about this, when we talk about the 90s, is you guys played against all these guys who are up for consideration in here. So, 3D, who would be your team of the 90s if you had to limit it to 5? And now it's your 5 best, or it's 5 by position?
And be careful how you answer that number 5 spot.
I mean, it's a no-brainer who my center is. It's a no-brainer.
Just checking.
Power forward.
Put these hands on you.
Karl Malone.
What? Intentionally. If I can say this, Isaiah, he intentionally opened up an old wound.
You sound like Little John over there. What?
My goodness. Hey, you've got him in stitches with that comment.
Watch this.
Wound and stitches, they go together.
Oh, I remember.
2 guard, obviously.
Stop snitching.
2 guard, obviously. 2 guard MJ.
Okay.
And my point guard, I'm going with John Stockton.
Oh, Lord. Look at you.
No, I'm good with that. I was right.
It was just my power forward.
Hey, Stockton, Jordan, Malone, and Shaq.
And then my small forward, with Dominique Wilkins, just to give him some love.
In the 90s?
Well, I know at 90 he was still giving us buckets. Now it might not be, but that's what I'm going with. I'm leaving it at that.
In the 90s, I would take him over Dominique.
In the 90s, I would go, and I know
Dominique was on the Achilles.
I
have Scottie Pippen.
Scottie would be in the 90s. And I know that
I was waiting for it.
I had a great 6 years, but I think I didn't win. And I didn't have, we're judged, as Reggie said earlier, on postseason. I didn't have great success in the 90s in the postseason. So, if that's part of the criteria, then yeah, Scottie gets it. But head up,
Head up.
I bet my numbers.
Head up.
My numbers were,
You talk about the numbers being very similar, and they were, except that you had you averaged more points, rebounds, and assists than he did.
No, Bird, wait. Let's
I got more
acknowledge.
touches.
Let's acknowledge on the real who this guy really is sitting here, because when Jordan was retiring and Grant Hill was coming into the league, we were talking about passing the mantle
To Grant.
Yes. You was going. So it ain't like you won. Scottie Pippen couldn't carry the league. Jordan carried the league. We're talking about a guy like yourself carrying the league. So you can't sit there and be like, oh, well, Scott,
Hey, you know what? I'll let you say it. If you want to say it.
No, but it's like,
We know.
Stan, it's like, You know what?
Damn it, it's me.
What?
I'm the small forward.
Does Scottie
Reggie
Pippen
Miller.
have pictures of you or something? What's the deal with Scottie?
Wait a minute. Wait. Ho.
Something's going on.
I'm messy, Reggie.
Did he want him on the team?
Well, I can't speak for Michael, but no, I did not want him on the team.
I don't mind Michael Jordan saying I didn't want Isaiah to be on the dream team. I don't mind, if Larry Bird said I don't want Isaiah to be on the dream team. But if Scottie Pippen say I don't want Isaiah to be on the dream team,
That's the problem.
man, come on. You can't say nothing.
I got a new
You
topic
can't
for
say
all the courts.
nothing. If Jordan is like, look, I'm not playing. If Isaiah plays, okay. All right. Scottie Pippen, I'm not playing if Isaiah plays. Man, go to the park.
3D, I need you to get up for a second. Get up for a second, if you would, 3D.
Okay.
And Isaiah, lay down on the couch. How long have you been harboring?
Oh,
this,
man.
Isaiah? Are you feeling better now that it's come out, Isaiah?
Well, Ernie, it's been a while. It's been on my mind, for about, 25 years right now.
Does it feel like a weight is being lifted off of you?
Well, yeah, because I finally get to talk about it and just, the whole dream team experience. And again, I got no problems with, the greatest player to ever play say he don't want to play with me, or Magic saying he don't. But anybody below them talking about they don't want to play with me? Anybody?
Excuse me, Mr. Thomas.
And I say below them?
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
your hour is up. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to charge you more. But I'm glad you feel better. Okay, let's move on. There we go. Very good. Thank you. Very nice.
Coach.
That's awesome. Okay, Shaq, tell me about the 90s.
I'm going to go at the 5 spot. I'm going to go with Akeem Olajuwon. Because for me, I know I was coming in and I was emerging / already emerged. He was the only guy that I couldn't figure out. I couldn't figure him out. And he was the only guy that I couldn't intimidate. The Georgetown boys, we all know they're going to fake left and go right. Rick Smith used to kill me early on, too. But
You say fake left and go right.
yeah, fake hard left. Just go right the whole time, yo. And just go right. Go ahead, Alonzo. Go right. Go ahead. Go right and give me that dumbass running hook. But anyway, him at the 5. I agree with D. Karl Malone at the 4 spot was a beast. That pick and roll, him and Stockton at pick and roll, unstoppable. At the 3, I don't know at the 3 yet. But at the 2, Mike, of course. And at the point guard, I'm going to go with GP.
Only because there's another decade to go, which is a really large verbal parachute for me at this point at center, which will be him. But in the 90s, I would take Akeem Olajuwon and what it is that he represented at the center position. I mean, he redefined what it was to be an athlete at that spot in much the way that, Chamberlain did with his footwork and athleticism. He was incredible. At the 4, Karl Malone and Charles is an awesome debate, but I would choose Karl Malone to play the 4 spot. At the small forward, I've talked to Grant at length about his career. I mean, he was absolutely the guy that was going to be what the league was about. Class, could do everything on the court and off the court. He was going to be that guy. And because of injuries and things that happened, because of Scottie Pippen winning championships at the small forward, it's hard not to put Scottie Pippen as the best small forward throughout the 90s. Great 2 guards in the 90s, Reggie Miller, Joe Dumars, Mitch Richmond, Clyde Drexler, all behind Michael Jordan. There's just not, it's hard to say that, but Reggie, you deserve.
I ain't not dumb enough to put myself in.
And then the point guard is a tough one because you're talking about how to play the point guard and guys that could do a little bit of everything. And Gary Payton and John Stockton represented the 90s, this 90s decade in 2 very, very different ways. And so it depends on what kind of style of ball you'd like to play. And I played with Gary in Seattle and grew up watching him in Oakland at Skyline High School and then on the Oregon State and then his years in Seattle. But I would pick John Stockton who I think was more capable of doing more things in Utah, but because of that system, did what it was that needed to be done for Jerry Sloan and for Karl Malone.
Everybody satisfied? Everybody had their say here on the 90s?
Reggie. Well, I mean, you guys are going by position, so I went with the best fives.
There you go. And they are?
Well, MJ, obviously. Well, let me start by saying special consideration, so people don't get upset. To Isaiah, special consideration to Shaq, and special consideration to Grant. But Charles, Carl, Hakeem, and he's really not gonna like this. David Robinson. I mean, David Robinson gets overlooked as one of the best centers of all time.
Reggie, are you thirsty? 90s. I want you to drink some of this.
You can say what you want, but 2 championships later in the MVP, David Robinson was a load.
Yeah, no, he was the man.
He was a load in the 90s.
And Patrick Ewing doesn't get a mention from anybody?
He just did.
Just try to be fair at the center.
And when we're talking about centers, he would probably be the 4th behind David, Hakeem, and Shaq. Not in that order. You might be higher, you may be lower.
This is
just because, like you said, we have another decade to go where you get rewarded.
One thing get every decade.
One thing that we thing that we did glean out of that whole thing is Georgetown Hoya. Let me see it. Ready? Let's see it.
You ready, Hook? Go ahead, Alonzo. Go that way. Kimbe, Patrick, you too. That dumbass running.